It's Corso and Catone. Brought to you by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Now for the real deal New England feel. Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. There's Catone. He's right here. Trust me if you're watching.
Of course I'm here.
Joe,
where else would I be?
Where would you rather be than right here, right now, Mark?
Right? Of course. Come on.
Joe is with us in the booth. You are watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, 790 The Score. And hey, send us an email in our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com, or you can give us a call on Heated Hotline, 855-313-PATS, P-A-T-S. Leave us a message, 24/7 message line. Joe will pick one. Let it be yours. Got a good one today in Weekly Rewind. We're going to go back, look at that 34-15 loss to the Dolphins down in Miami. And, of course, Catone's comments. Stick around for that. Thanksgiving just happened, so who knows what the hell happened with him on Thanksgiving Day. And we're going to talk Bruins and Celtics and a little bit of a Yankees versus Red Sox minute. Mark wants to go through a few things. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Hey. Wonderful.
Still full.
I was going to say, Mark, did people annoy you or what on Thanksgiving?
Listen, it was a very good Thanksgiving. Of course I got annoyed, but you're going to have to wait to hear those stories.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So what we don't want to wait for is this Patriots game and going through the week that was. Weekly Rewind. Joe? Going back through the week. About a weekly rewind. 34-15 loss in Miami. I actually picked them to win, but
I did not.
I was trying to be positive, but that's out the door. Positive. That's gone. That is gone. Okay. So, and I have to take out the Rothstein glasses today. Okay.
Yeah, you can't see.
There they go.
Yes, because
it's a little early for those today.
Yeah, well, I got a lot of stuff to read over here. A lot of things, a couple of plays we want to break down. But let's talk about the offense. Well, first of all, generally speaking, Mark, where is it wrong for this team?
Everywhere. Listen, all three phases: offense, defense, special teams. We'll throw in coaching. Where do you want to begin? Because it all went wrong Sunday. Every aspect went wrong Sunday, Chris.
Let's go. Let's start with Drake May. All right. He wasn't as good as the week before. Okay.
No. Can you blame him this week?
Well, I was going to say there are extenuating circumstances. What do you think of his overall performance? He was 22 of 37, 222, 1 touchdown, 1 pick.
Well, you know what, Chris, I am going to say, though, he does have to learn how to protect the ball, Chris, because every time, there are a lot of times where he's back there getting hit and the ball does come loose. Yeah. I am going to put that on him, Chris. He has to learn how to absorb a hit and protect the ball because you can't, it seems like, I know the offensive line is terrible, but every game, Chris, it seems like he's dropping, a ball's getting knocked out of his hands. So that he's going to have to get better at without question. But other than that, Chris, what did he actually have time to do on Sunday?
Not much. If you're going to go the negative part of it, yes, he's missing a few throws here and there. Yep. He's off. Yep. He's not on the same page. Either the receiver isn't or he's not a few times. But all in all, he's not the biggest problem with what's going on. In fact, he's the only reason why they do anything. His movement in the pocket, no matter the down and distance, throwing from the run, he's accurate. Those off-schedule throws are great. He was rolling out of the pocket. He threw a touchdown to
he hit Hooper.
Yeah. So that's what he can be. You're seeing what this guy can do, and he's honestly the only bright spot. Now, I will say this. What I'm getting a little nervous about is I talked to you earlier in the year about bad habits based on the pressure. That's one of
And
the reasons I didn't want to play.
The footwork was bad, Chris, Sunday. His footwork was not good, and that was maybe bad habits from the pressure. I know you're going to get into it.
Yeah, and that's why. I mean, I'm looking at it saying, okay, I'm watching him drop back to pass. I'm watching that his feet are not underneath him, okay, sometimes when he's throwing. I'm watching him. The hips aren't really right. He's not stepping really well into the throws, climbing the pocket. His eyes are starting to come down a little looking at the rush, and you can't blame him. So a lot of stuff is off the back foot. It's off schedule. It's not, he's not really focused on the
Chris,
attention.
that wasn't like that the first couple of weeks.
No.
2-3 weeks that he was out there.
No, but it's so bad. I mean, it's just so bad. I mean, look, well, let's talk about let's get to the rest of it. So both of us think Drake May's he's not a huge problem. We agree on that, yeah? No,
absolutely. Okay. He's not a huge problem.
Okay. So let's talk about the wide receivers, Mark. What did you see?
Well, I think it's the same thing we talk about every week, Chris. They don't finish routes correctly. They can't get open. They can't get separation. This week, I think they might have even gotten a little bit of a pass just because they didn't even have time. I don't think, Chris, to even run a full route tree, that whatever they were running, because the pass rush was getting there so quickly. But, Chris, it's the same thing with them. With them, they can't get open. They don't finish routes. They can't get off press coverage. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I mean, you have a room, and if we keep saying Pop Douglas has talent, but they're not utilizing correctly. At this point, Chris, I don't know how much talent he's got. Yeah, he's quick off the line, but I mean, he shows that burst. He caught that one ball, Chris, up the seam, right?
Yeah.
But what level of talent is even in that room, Chris?
Well, that's the thing. And so, yeah, because when you look at Drake May's ratings for the week, they're terrible. I mean, passer rating 22nd, yards per attempt 23rd, completion over expect 23rd, drop back 23rd. I mean, all of it's bad. And yeah, look, I saw a play from an end zone shot where basically you saw Butte on the left side of the field. He's running the laziest route I've ever seen in my life. Now, maybe he just thought, well, the ball's going to the other side, so I don't have to run. But you still have to, though. That's the thing.
You still
have to. And this is what you're seeing from some of these guys. And it's horrible. It's just – and no, they don't have – I mean, Pop Douglas shows you some things. He does. When he gets the ball in his hands, okay. I think Butte can be okay. But without a one and without an offensive line, it's not going to make a difference.
And Chris, you know what I noticed on some of to your point, watching it from a couple of the end zone views, the times that they got receivers like in front of each other, like there's like 5 yards of separation. One's at like the 30 and one's at like the 35 behind each other. Like, what is that? Like that happened at least, I counted, Chris, 3 times with Hooper and Hunter Henry. What is that? Is that on them, or is that on Van Pelt's scheme?
It's some of both. First of all, I don't like his scheme. Listen, when you see no scheme is designed for 2 plays to be in the same spot.
Well, Chris, that happened on multiple
so, I mean,
times on
that's
Sunday.
On the receivers. That's just lack of focus, lack of attention to detail, all of it. Across the board.
So are you saying they ran the wrong route? They're not supposed to be in that location?
They shouldn't be next to each other.
Okay. All right.
They shouldn't be next to each other unless they're running people off. And we'll get into a play when we talk about the defense and when we talk about when we talk about the offensive line, we'll get into a play that has to deal with that. But yeah, no, listen, they're not good. They're just not good enough. They like I said, and they commit penalties on top of it. What, Polk had 1 catch, or what was his?
He had 1 catch. It was like the opening play of the game, wasn't it? Or second play of the game. They threw him that pass on the outside, and he ran with it a little bit, and that was basically about it. Was that his only catch?
Yeah, two attempts, 1 catch, 7 yards. Yeah. It's pointless. Demario Douglas, He had 5 catches for 62 yards. Austin Hooper had the touchdown. I mean, the tight ends continue to be the feature of this offense, which, again, I don't like. But
Chris,
even with this offense,
right?
Even with this offense, I don't like it, but they're still not even running it right. Okay. And with the offensive line, Mark, I mean, this is the biggest thing. This is the biggest thing of the day to me. Okay. And you give me your view of this offensive line, because I'll give you a couple of stats. The Rothsteins are coming on now. Okay.
There we go. Joe.
So
there they come.
3 false starts. Okay, this is Vidarian Lowe. He had 3 false starts, penalty, and a holding call. He had 4. Okay. Jacobs, 1 false start, 1 holding. Okay. Michael Winu, 1 holding. He's supposed to be the best guy.
Can I ask you a question? How can one team have that many pre-snap penalties?
On one drive, okay, and I made note of this too. On one drive, 3 false starts on one drive. Okay. No, I'm sorry. It was 2 drives. The first 2 drives, I think, 3 false starts and a holding call. That's the beginning of the game. That's how you began. And so you can't win like that. You can't win in negative plays. You can't be behind the sticks. You're not good enough for that.
No, I was just going to say, with this offense, Chris, what are your 2nd and 20, 2nd and 15, a 3rd and 17. Like, you're just constantly putting behind the sticks because of the penalties. This offense doesn't have the skill level, Chris, or the talent, obviously, to overcome that. They can't.
And Phil Perry with Boston Sports, NBC Boston Sports there, had some things to say about the offensive line, his impressions, and I agree with a lot of it. So, Joe? Well, while he's queuing it up, Mark, 4 sacks. He was hit 8 times, but they only had 4. They had 4. So I say only 4 sacks. That may be a good game for our offense. But 4 sacks, okay, hit 8 times, and that was even on max protection. That was even on max protection. Well, they had guys in on max protection. Okay, while he's Joe, you need another minute, right?
No, we're good. I got it.
Okay.
Now.
All right, let's play Phil Perry, and then I'll talk to you about this play, Mark.
Well, if you ask Vidarian Lowe, it was, quote, terrible fundamentals. And that was true when it came to trying to protect against stunts up front from the Miami Dolphins. I thought they used those tackle end stunts or those end tackle stunts really effectively throughout the course of the game. The Patriots have had problems with those, Michael, all season long. They couldn't stop them here today. And the penalties really drove this offense into the ground, especially early in the game. They finished with 10 penalties in all for 75 yards against just 3 for the Dolphins for 18 total yards. So again, not focused, not on their details. I think you can, again, of course, look at the talent on the offensive line, and that is a problem. That is a factor. There's no question about it. But how are they getting coached during the week? Because
yeah, and we'll get to the coaching in a second. But this is what we're saying, the same thing. He agrees with that and what we're seeing on the field. There was a play, okay? When the offensive line is going to block, okay, you basically split. When you come up to the line, you split the defense down the middle. So from the center out, either side. And so you count up the guys, that you're dealing with. And there was a play where we had the Patriots had protection, max protection. So they had protection in for this to help with the running back. Okay. So they had basically I think they had 6 guys to block 5. Okay. They had 6 guys to block 5. So on the left side, you got 3 defenders sitting over there. Okay. And we'll forget the right side because that didn't, it was the left side. So if you're Drake May and you're looking at the offensive line, it's the left side of the offensive line. So you have Ramondre Stevenson in the backfield, and you have the guard and the tackle in the center. Now, what you had is you had a safety that was creeping up okay, and like the A gap, and then you had a defensive tackle and a defensive end. Now the rule is, if you got three guys like that, you have the offensive lineman, the guard and the tackle, and you have the running back, 3-on-3. Okay, you want the running back to take the safety because you don't ever want to put a running back on the defensive front lineman. So what happens is, on the snap, and this is on the guard, and I think this was on, who's on that side? Who's on that left side with Jacobs? Is it Jordan or?
I think so. I'm not sure. They were rotating some guys in last week, Chris.
So what happens is the two down linemen both go to the right. They both go upfield to the right. And that means the two offensive linemen got to go with them to be to their left. And that opens up a lane for the safety. Okay? Well, what ends up happening is the safety also goes to the right, and they loop the friggin' defensive tackle around, and he ends up going through the hole because the guard decides, I got to go block the safety who's coming through the gap. And so as soon as he goes to block the safety, the defensive lineman comes free, and Ramondre Stevenson did his job and went up to the safety too. So now you're doubling the safety, and you left the gap on your left wide open, and here comes the defensive lineman and cranked Drake May on that play. That's the kind of crap. It's hard to do without drawing it up, but that's the kind of crap that's going on with the offensive line. Their assignments, they're just blowing assignments all over the field, Mark. All over the field. Did that make sense at all?
No, it made sense. It did. It makes sense. You're right. It would have been easy if you took out the chalkboard, but it makes sense.
But, the bottom line is they're doubling the wrong guy. They're doubling the safety. Meanwhile, they're leaving the tackle on the two defensive linemen. Okay. It's just not. It's not.
And Chris, in addition to that, too, on the edge, right? So Miami had on Wenu's side, so they had Chop Robinson coming off the edge, the rookie from Penn State. He only had like 2 sacks all year. Chris, he looked like Von Miller in his prime, coming off the edge against our linemen. He was just blowing by him. Like, he was by them. They weren't even, like, it was bad. Like, he's not that good. He's only got 2 sacks all year. We made him look like Von Miller in his prime when he was with Denver.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
It's bad. I mean, it's just flat out bad. The offensive line was horrible in this game. I mean, just horrible. When it penalties and everything. And then that brings into coaching. That brings us now into coaching and talking about, well, who's responsible for this? Okay. And Mayo had this to say after the game.
Look, my message to the team was, look, this is the NFL. It just wasn't good enough. First quarter, 0 points across the board, and then give up 24 points in the second quarter definitely is a hard pill to swallow.
6 pre-snap penalties in the first half.
6.
5 on offense, 1 on defense. How much of that is a reflection just on the coaching?
Yeah. Look, it starts with me. And we've had these hiccups of games where the penalties really affected us, and it did today.
I know you coach guys who's making the same mistakes over and over and over again. How do you get to that gap?
That's why we're coaches. We got to find a solution, whether that's you got to figure out what lever to pull to get a guy going. And sometimes, look, it could look good during the week, and then you get into the game, and it's a surprise.
The players have to start looking at themselves. You can only do so much. What is it on the players?
Look, it's all. Look, once those guys cross the white lines, there's nothing I can do for them. There's nothing any coach can do for them once they cross the white line. It's my job to continue to prepare not only them but our coaches to go out here and play better football. Thanks.
Nothing I can do once they cross the white line.
Wow.
What the hell do you make of that? And Joe, that's a nice compilation, by the way.
That's
nice.
Real good, Joe.
Good job.
Could you imagine Belichick making a comment like that?
No.
Chris?
No, he always puts it on him. Look, you said I'm so sick of hearing that. Go ahead.
It's on me. So what are you going to do about it? Like you said, Chris. So they crossed the white line. You can't make an adjustment. You can't come up with something different. You're getting gashed by Jonnu Smith and Jalen Waddle. There's nothing you could have done defensively to stop what was happening and what they were running for those 2 guys to get them open. Nothing. So they crossed the white lines. There's nothing else you can do. You can't scheme something up to change things up. What are you kidding me? Oh, it's on me. Well, it's on you. Well, what are you doing then?
That's nothing. Look, the bottom
Chris,
line is the
that's
attention
ridiculous.
to detail is gone. It's not there anymore. So, like, the attention to detail that we saw with Belichick, that's an extreme, obviously.
No, it is, but
He's over his head. He's not the right guy. He's not ready to be a coach. We said it in December, you and I, last December, that this is a mistake, and now they're seeing it. And now, challenging a play before the half, okay, where there was a defensive penalty and they were going to have a first down anyway. So you're basically saving 10 yards. They're still going to get a first down. You challenge the play, even if you won, which they lost the challenge, but even if you won the challenge, what the hell did you gain? 10 yards? They still got a first down. These are the kind of things, these attention to details, and I've brought these things up in previous weeks. It's just not there. He's over his head. He can't make adjustments during the game. He's incapable of doing it. This game is too fast. That's it.
Well, he's telling you there's nothing he can do once they go between the white lines. What coach would even say that?
That's
I don't think I've ever heard that before from anybody.
A fireable comment. Joe, can we fire him? Do we have that power?
Like I said, I do think that somewhere along the line, some people are listening to you guys for sure over there.
Well, Chris, we did have a couple of comments last week, so people are listening to us because we'll talk about it when we get to Pat's Nation, but we had a Miami fan that said we knew nothing about Miami.
We don't know anything about it.
Right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow because we knew nothing. I did nothing. I knew that Calais Campbell was going to be lined up all over the field, and I knew that he was going to be rushing and hit May about 65 times in that game. You knew that was going to happen. You knew that the offs.
Yeah. We said something about Jonnu Smith. We said something about the other side of the corner room for the Patriots. We brought all that up, that they were going to gas us.
So let us know in Heated Hotline what you think. If you're a Miami fan, pay attention. Pay attention. So, look, he's over his head. The bottom line is they got to clean the house. They got to call Detroit. They got to get their assistant GM in here as a GM. They got to call Ben Johnson. They got to get him here as a head coach. And now you have something. Now I'm willing to wait another year, Mark. We're going to get to the defense.
Let me ask you a question. All right. Well, let's get to the defense. All
right. So we'll do that coming back out of break. But this portion of Weekly Rewind was presented by the Pats Nation Sundays. Mark already mentioned it, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern. Tomorrow we're going to have a preview of that Colts game. So make sure you tune in and pay attention. When we come back, we're going to stay in Weekly Rewind, talk defense, get more aggravated. Stick around.
Sundays are for football. And here in New England, that means it's the Pats Nation with Corso and Catone.
You have the worst wide receiver room in the National Football League.
This is why the Patriots need us in the draft room. Let's see what the Pats Nation thinks about that, Mark.
Starting June 30th, Sundays, 8 to 9 a.m. on 790 The Score.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. All right, Mark, let's stay in Weekly Rewind. Let's talk about the defense, okay? And before we get to we got Phil Perry on a couple of comments he made on the defense while Joe's setting that up. What was there over 400 yards again in this game, Mark? What was the yardage?
It was pretty close because Tua had over 300 throwing the ball. It had to be close.
It was. The total yards were 373. So I mean, again, it's just continuation of the same thing. You're talking about passer ratings. Okay, for the last 2 weeks. Okay, you got Stafford and you got Tua. 47 of 67, 612 passing yards in 2 weeks. Okay.
How many touchdown passes?
8 touchdowns. 8
touchdown passes.
Isn't that like how many touchdowns? Like Matt
how many
Jones
interceptions, Chris? Did they even have it? Oh, they didn't have an interception, did they?
Goose egg. 0.
Goose egg. Okay.
0. I mean, and then these guys both had an average of 138 passer rating. That's like perfect. He had Tua pass for 308 yards in this game, and then 2 sacks. That's it. So let's hear what Phil Perry had to say.
Yeah, they'll tell you they were embarrassed, Michael, especially at halftime, going into the locker room down 24-0. I spoke to Kyle Duggar. He lamented the fact that they were not communicating well enough, that they weren't even focused well enough. And it makes you wonder what kind of preparation they had leading up to this game to come in and perform the way they did, especially on the back end. It was interesting to hear Godchaw bring up that they made an adjustment mid-game. And he indicated he wondered why it took as long as it did to make that adjustment. But it sounds like the Patriots decided at some point to go with just one linebacker on the field, give the secondary a little bit more help, go with some bigger bodies up front to two-gap and take care of the run on their own. And they felt as though that slowed down the Dolphins in the second half. But again, Devon Godchaw mentioning, wasn't sure why it took as long as it did. As much as he likes the coaches, he would have liked to see that adjustment made a little bit sooner.
Yeah. Again,
There you go. There you
coaching, and we'll get to coaching in a second, but they made an adjustment and it did help. But by then, the game was over by then.
The game was over at halftime. It was all done. Over.
The game's moving too fast. Look, the tackling was bad. Okay. They weren't set on so many occasions in the first half of this game. They're not set and ready to play. And the ball's being snapped. Smith was killing them, especially in the middle of the field. Devy was flat foot.
Let me
and let
explain to you,
Waddle
Chris,
go right by him.
What were they doing with John Smith? Why was he so open? Why was he getting open? What were they doing with him?
Well, a lot of times what was happening was he was ending up one-on-one with a linebacker. Not even so much. There were times where it wasn't a safety that they were ended up on a linebacker at times. And then they were playing some zone, but the problem was they're playing some zone, but you have linebackers that sit flat foot and can't move. There was a play where Waddle, ends up in the flat, and you could see Tavai he just doesn't move. He's in quicksand, and he needs to get out there. That was his own coverage. But Mark, I got a play. You remember the play where the running back, for Miami, what's his name? I can't say his name. Akane.
Yeah.
I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. That play where he took the wheel route and walked in.
Yep.
Okay. And it looked like there was no one on that side of the field. Well, there wasn't. Okay. And so when I went back and I looked at that, and basically what you had, Jonnu Smith at that point was killing them, right? So you had him lined up to one side. Okay. You had two safeties up. This was basically a cover one, but like a cover one robber where there was only one linebacker on the field, and he was basically the cover one guy. He was the guy that was the free guy playing zone, which I don't like this scheme at all, but this is what they did. So they decide because Smith's killing him, they're going to double him with two safeties on one side. Fine. Now, they put Duggar and they put Marcus Jones. Basically, look like two cover two safeties. They're basically sitting them there, And then Miami's got a bunch formation on the other side with two wide receivers and Tyreek Hill as the third guy kind of set behind the tackle, So they man up on all of that, And they had a running back in the backfield. So Duggar's on one side. He's going to take the running back, and those two safeties take Jonnu Smith. The other side of the field, you got Marcus Jones is going to key on Tyreek Hill, and then you got the corner, and you got the other two corners. I think it was Gonzalez, and you had Jonathan Jones taking those other two receivers. What ends up happening, and this is why these offenses are so damn good. McDaniels and everyone. This is what you're never going to see with our offense. What they did is they took Tyreek Hill and they motioned him in the backfield, and so now you had two running backs in the backfield. So those two safeties, Duggar and Jones, are taking those two running backs that are set up back in the backfield, Hill and the running back. Well, for some reason, they switch. Duggar goes to one side, and they switch sides. I don't know why, but they switch sides. So this is basically a combo coverage. Whichever running back comes out your side, that's who you're taking. Well, so what ends up happening is Tyreek Hill goes play fake across to the other side of the field. And that means Marcus Jones is supposed to take him. And he's telling Duggar, hey, Duggar had a horrible game, Mark.
Awful. Game. Absolutely awful.
He's telling Duggar, Okay, you got the switch. You got to take the other running back that's going to go the opposite way. And those other two receivers basically ran off the corners, and they went on like post routes, so it left that side of the field wide open. Duggar stands there while the running back wheels out of the backfield and doesn't cover him. He ends up he's still looking at Tyreek Hill. And there it was. That's not coaching. That's just stupidity. I don't like the scheme.
It's bad.
But that's on the player, Mark.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
So, I don't.
Duggar played horrible. And we paying him a lot of money, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, Duggar played, he performed, 14 million paying him? Okay.
Something like that.
And so then Covington, again, what Phil Perry said. I mean, what are you seeing out of Covington? I'm going to shut up for a minute because I'm disgusted. I can't anymore.
Well, Chris, you heard Gottschall say that, they made an adjustment midway through, but he don't know why it took so long, because once they made the adjustment, they seemed to have slowed them down in the second half. But you make an adjustment, the game's over. It's 24-0, 20, whatever it was, 27-0. The game's over, 31-0, game's over. So you made an adjustment basically when the game was over, because you weren't in it, you weren't coming back. So what the hell were you doing? Like, to your point, Chris, the game's moving too fast for them. They can't make adjustments on the fly. So what, do they have to go in a locker room and think about it and look at something, and then they make an adjustment? Well, at that point, the game's over. Yeah. Whatever it was. You can't make an adjustment at that point.
No, it's bad.
It's really moving too fast for Covington. If whatever he designs doesn't work out of the locker room, he really, Chris, has no idea what to do, I don't think, because it doesn't seem that things can get adjusted fast enough. No. He's got Gonzalez playing, like, these are the kind of defense. He's got Gonzalez playing an outside technique on a wide receiver. When the middle, and you leave in the middle. So if the guy goes in the middle of the field. We talked about that last week, Chris, too.
Yeah.
With Gonzalez.
So you're leaving your middle open when your middle is so bad. It's just bad. It's just bad coaching. And let me tell you, the last thing I'm going to say before we get to Catone's comments. I don't know if everybody out there understands this. The defense is a much bigger problem than the offense is. I said it. A much bigger fix.
Mm-hmm.
Fixing the offense is easy.
Agree.
You got the quarterback. You got him.
I don't know if fixing the offense is easy either, but I agree with the defense is a problem. Major problem.
Well, if they listen to us, it is.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah.
Well, it's starting to explain why, like, a couple of big guys left way early on. You know what I mean?
Okafor quit.
Guy quit on them. He quit on them.
Quit.
How do you quit?
And that was their big signing in the offseason, Chris.
So it's a much bigger problem, and we'll, stay tuned to us because we're breaking it down. We'll let you know what we think, and on the bye week, on the off week, we'll talk a little bit more about what we think they should do in the offseason. Yeah. But Weekly Rewind was presented by CORSO Law Group, CORSOLawGroup.com. When we come back, hey, hopefully we're going to hear something about Holiday and somebody irritated Mark, I'm sure. So stick around. Catone's comments is next.
No one ever thinks they'll be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer. But things happen. Whether it's a traffic ticket or more serious issue, go to CORSOLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys.
Time for Catone's comments!
So, last week, I talked about it's the silly season. So, with that said, I'm going to fool you. I'm not going to talk about Thanksgiving. I'm not going to talk about what occurred. I'm going to hold it and wait because it is the silly season. There's a few other things coming up in regards to what my wife is having me do during this season. And then we're going to have Christmas come up, and then we're going to have New Year's come up. So at some point in between all the madness, you're going to get a Catone's comment about the silly season, but I'm going to wait. It's almost like a cliffhanger. I'm going to make you wait until I put it out there. But believe me, there's going to be a nice long Catone's comment on the silly season because that's what I call this. But I have to preempt that because the Patriots are so bad. They're so bad. Listen, the Patriots are a minor league team. That's all they are. They're not a professional football team. It's the minor leagues. Listen, it's the minor leagues. It starts with ownership, because I don't know I don't know what their plan is. I don't know what they're doing. They sit there every week, Mr. Kraft and the Son, and they look at each other, and they got the same look on their face every week, like they're looking dumbfounded at each other. Well, what's happening? What's happening? You got a minor league team on the field. That's not a professional football team. I'd say 75% of the starters you have on that field, on both sides of the ball, shouldn't be starting in the NFL. Okay, that's your first issue. Where does that come from? It comes from Elliott Wolf. It comes from Groh. It comes from that entire front office, by the way, that you kept. Okay, that front office is a minor league front office. They're not ready for prime time. They ought to be ashamed of themselves based on what the talent that they put on this field to start this year. I don't want to hear about Belichick, and Belichick made bad draft choices, and he didn't sign the right personnel. Fine. You want to blame Bill, blame him. Everybody's blaming Bill. But listen, you had an entire offseason, an entire program of offseason to bring in free agents, to draft differently, to make decisions when it came to extensions and no extensions, and you extended every stiff from a losing team. And you extended these people. That's on Elliott Wolf. That's on Groh. That's on them. They're a minor league front office. That front office needs to be wiped out. So let's go there. Wiped out. You want to fix this? Chris mentioned a couple of things in the last segment. No, the ownership needs to get their heads out of their behinds and spend some money, and they need to wipe out that entire front office, because the front office, there's a hodgepodge of people left over from Bill. Maybe they added a few new people. That whole building needs to be cleaned out. You need to bring in a personnel person, a GM, president, whatever you want to call the person, and you need to let them rebuild that entire staff, because that's what it's going to take. But that's going to cost money, which the ownership don't want to spend. And I don't want to hear the BS about, oh, that was Bill. No, ownership, we now have the evidence and the proof, didn't want to spend the money and don't want to spend the money. And that was affirmed by not offering Ayuk enough money to come here, not offering Ridley enough money to come here. They don't want to spend to get a number one wide receiver. They don't want to spend. Okay? Now, the front office needs to be wiped clean. Never mind this coaching staff. Listen, this week on Zolak and Bertrand says he was sitting behind the Patriot bench during the game, okay, on Sunday. He said, and all you saw was Patriot coaches complaining to the referees the entire game. Mayo's chasing referees up and down the sidelines. Their coaches, their assistant coaches are complaining to refs. You're playing so bad, and you're chasing referees up and down the field. You want to talk about a minor league organization, not a professional staff? You should be making in-game adjustments. You should be looking at something. You should be looking at the iPad, whatever they got on the sidelines, the Surface Pro. You should be looking at that. No, you're complaining about calls. You're talking to the refs. You're yelling at refs. Well, it's a minor league organization. The coaching staff has no business being at this level. Covington is a joke. He's a joke. I'll say it. And I don't want to hear, listen, he was a defensive line coach. He's over his head. Van Pelt is a quarterback's coach. He's over his head. Mayo wasn't even a defensive coordinator. God knows what his title was last year, but over his head. The entire coaching staff needs to be wiped out, and you need to replace 75% of the players on that team because they stink. They're not starting NFL players. They stink. So you know what? Why don't you stop by becoming a professional organization again? And stop looking at each other in the owner's box like, oh, what's going on? You're a minor league organization. That's what you've become. That's what you're putting. That's the product you're putting on the field. I'm disgusted, and I'm sick of these people saying, oh, well, they need a lot of help, and they need tackles, and they need to. No, you need to go sign the best wide receiver you can find. You know what? If Jamar Chase doesn't sign what do they call it? Help me out, Chris. What do they call it? The franchise tag.
The franchise tag, yeah.
Whatever it takes. Offer $300 million. I don't care what you offer him. You need a number one wide receiver. Forget the tackle. You can get a tackle in free agency. You want about drafting tackles? You need to go get a receiver. And I don't want to hear about T. Higgins. T. Higgins is not a number 1 receiver. He's a 2. I'm so disgusted with this team. Hey, Chris loved this stuff. He loved when they took Gonzalez. What the hell is Gonzalez giving you now? The number 1 corner. When Smith-Njigba from Seattle is now lighting it up like I predicted he would. I predicted. You love Gonzalez. You love that move. Belichick made. They need a corner. You don't need a corner in 2024. You don't need one.
Joe. Okay, Joe.
All right.
No, he's asking me a question. I wasn't going to interrupt his Catone's comments. I mean, he's screaming and yelling. He's going to come through the. I think he's going to come through the screen at me. Take a breath for a minute, Mark.
I love it.
I'm genuinely concerned about him, Joe.
Well, the Patriots should be. You know what I mean?
About who?
You're about to pop a blood vessel.
About me? Because you know what? The media over here, Chris, I don't think they quite understand. Like, they sugarcoat it. Listen, who cares? What, you're not going to get access to the team? So you sugarcoat it? This team stinks.
I like some of these guys. I'm not going to name the name of who I heard, but they're so institutionalized and they're so in bed with these friggin' owners. I heard them talk about the things that they require. Okay. And I'm going to do it with my hand gesture because then you'll know who I'm talking about. Okay. Is the first thing they said was they need a corner. They need a corner. They need a left tackle.
They need a corner.
They need a wide receiver. They need a line. Like, this is the – listen, all I know is this. Yes, the talent on this team sucks, but you got to bring it back. You have to back it all the way up to the ownership. Like Mark, is a player going to come to the coach and say, listen, coach, I suck. I'm no good. I shouldn't be on this field. Please take me off the field. Like, who's doing that, right? Nobody's doing that. So, first, it's incumbent upon the GM and whoever the brain trust is over there, which there are none, to put the right kind of guys on this team, which we know they don't have. So it starts with them, okay? It starts with the cheap bastards that own this friggin' team, okay, that don't want to pay, and they don't want to put the quality plays on, as Mark said. Then it goes from there, it now trickles down to it goes to the players. So the players stink because the ownership put them in that place, okay? So when you talk about false starts, talk about all these penalties, right, Mark? I said this to you on Sunday, too. You want to know why? You say, well, how can a professional football player have that many false starts? Okay? Here's how. Because, yeah, he's a professional football player. But when you know you're not as good as the guy on the other side of you, when you know you're not as good as the guy you're lining up against, you're going to try anything. You're going to take any little way you can, any little edge. So now as an offensive line, you start anticipating your own snap count. And that's how you end up moving because you know the guy on the other side of the ball is going to kick your ass on the play, and you don't want to get taken off the field. There's your false starts. And now it's incumbent upon the coach to recognize that this guy doesn't get it. He's not good enough. That's why we keep false starting. And change it. Change the scheme. Figure it out. Play with what you have. That's the quality of a coach. They all stink, to your point.
It's a minor league team, Chris.
You were right about Smith and the job. You want me to say it? You want to hear it, Mark? You need to hear it. I was wrong. You were right. Mock the friggin'
No. You weren't wrong.
You
weren't wrong, but you fell into the Belichick line of thinking too. You used to drink the Kool-Aid while he was here. Let's face it.
Okay. Well, you're right.
Joe!
You're 100% right. And when we get to the bye next week, when we come on, we're going to talk, Mark. You like this idea? We'll talk a little bit about what we think they should do.
But Chris, you are right though with the unnamed source of, tackle and corner. Like really, that's what you think.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I positively do. I'm not going to mention the names because we do respect these people. But
TC. Anyway, so all right. Well, Mark, good stuff. Catone, we got to get to B's and C's. So Catone's comments was presented by the Pats Nation, Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Hear the breakdown tomorrow of the Colts game. See if we can help them to not get the crap kicked out of them. But hey, when we come back, going to go B's and C's, no flipping.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. CORSO Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. Whether it's a traffic ticket or more serious issue, talk with these expert attorneys. CORSOLawGroup.com.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. All right, Mark, let's get into it. Bruins, Celtics, B's and C's. Joe?
Hit it! The Boston Celtics are the world champions, and they have shown the world how great a ball club they really are. Screen shot,
Okay, Mark, let's talk about the Bruins a little bit. So they fire Montgomery. Sacco, gets promoted, okay, as the interim coach. By the way, Montgomery caught on real quick.
Real quick. He went to St. Louis, right? Yeah.
That deal was already in place, wasn't it?
Oh, I think it was. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Because they made their move as soon as we made our move. They got rid of their coach and hired him immediately.
I think he was sabotaging the whole situation. Because
you think so?
Well, let's look at the games following. Okay.
Okay.
The team looks better from top to bottom. They have a renewed energy about them. They're fighting.
But he was supposed to be the players' coach, Chris. That's why they got rid of the other coach.
I think everybody. I honestly think everybody knew that the writing was on the wall with him, and I just think that they stopped taking the message. I don't know. I don't know what the issues in the locker room were, but there were definitely issues.
Yeah.
You saw some times with Marchand and he were arguing on the bench a little bit, and he pushed them once, and so there were definitely some issues because now Sacco takes over. All of a sudden, Swayman's better. Against Detroit on Saturday, he had 19 saves. They've had zero. They had a shutout, a 1-goal game that allowed. The defense are getting guys out from where Swayman is. They're pushing guys out. Lindholm's playing well. Both Lindholms are playing better. Face-offs are better. Guys are getting in the corners, Mark. I mean,
they're doing the things. They're doing the little things. They're doing the things, Chris, that they haven't done all year. That they had done in the past. You're right. The fact that you didn't extend him during the offseason, you're right. I think they started out slow, and the players were just like, you know what? He's probably a lame duck coach, and they just tuned him off. You're right. But I will say this in Montgomery's defense, Chris.
Yeah.
They are entering into a soft part of the schedule. So, like the next 5, 6, 7 games, Chris, they're going to be playing teams now that they can beat. So they could run off a string of 6, 7 wins in a row. And yet, the eye test, you like to use that eye test. The eye test, they are playing better. But they are playing teams right now where they are capable of running off a string of victories. So it's interesting to see if they continue to play better and if they can run off 5 or 6 wins in a row.
Well, I mean, they play, like, for example, the Utah team they played. They lost to that team.
No, they did.
And now they beat them 1-0.
They did.
So they were losing to some of these crappy teams too.
Yep. No, they were.
I still don't think they're going to beat Florida. I mean, I still don't think they got a chance against the Panthers.
Chris, I still think they're going to struggle to make the playoffs. I do. I honestly think they're going to struggle to make the playoffs.
I now think that with the change in coach, I think you'll see them make. I mean, currently, even with
Montgomery,
they're only in 10th. They're 10 out. They're only 2 points behind, 3 points behind the number 4 spot in the.
No, they are. Everybody's bunched up.
So,
they don't have any shot of beating Florida, Chris. That's a fantasy.
I don't think they're going to go anywhere, but I think they'll make the playoffs now. I think this guy Sacco will get something out of him, and I think the more you see Swayman perform the way he is, I think the players will get behind him again because I think there was a disconnect between Swayman and the players. I think the players were pissed off at him. We talked about this last week, and
you think the
Chisawa said it too.
And you think the changing coaches is going to fix?
Yeah, I mean, that? I think because the coaches is probably, you always see that a re-energize the team, and I think that will help Swayman some, and maybe there was a disconnect between Swayman and Montgomery. I don't know. I wish I knew what was going on behind the scenes, but we heard Fluto Chisawa last week talking about some of the internal things. He knows what's going on inside there.
No, he does. He definitely does.
And some of the reasons he was let go. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but they are playing a lot better. Let's see if this team can make the playoffs. But yeah, no, I mean, they're not going to make any noise in the playoffs.
No. I don't think they will, Chris. But it'll be interesting to see.
But real quick, do you think Sacco? Do you think at some point? I mean, if they play well and make the playoffs, you think Sacco gets the job? Sweeney's the one who's going to go.
Potentially, Chris. I'm going to tell you why. Because I don't think they're going to want to go pay a coach a lot of money. And I don't think it'll cost you much money to make him the head coach. So if they do well, go on a run, and the players do buy in, because his salary is not going to cost a lot, Chris, it wouldn't surprise me if they keep him.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, especially if they, to your point, they make the playoffs, Chris, and say they win a series in the playoff, and the players seem to be happy and motivated. Maybe they probably keep him. What do you think? I think.
Yeah, I do. I think that at some point, I think if they're playing well throughout the season, they'll remove the tag.
They'll remove the tag. Yeah.
Now flip it to the Celtics, and I want to talk about the Clippers game, because that's the game Porzingis comes out. First of all, are you surprised that he's back this soon?
I am surprised. I thought he'd be back after the holidays, after Christmas. But did you like the way he came into the game? Did you like the way he came out of the locker room?
Well, he likes he's somebody that likes the flair, like Willis Reed.
It makes a difference, though. It makes a difference, his flair, when he does come out, because I think the team does get excited too. On top of it.
They love him. They love him.
Right. You're right, Joe.
They what do they call he and Brown? What was cookies and cream? They were calling
cookies and cream. Yeah.
Cookies and cream. and that's what they listen. He played 23 minutes, which that's in line with what I thought. That's a little more than I thought. I thought he would play like 15 to 20 minutes.
That's what I figured.
But he had 16. I mean, think about it: 16.6 rebounds, and he had a couple of blocks too. I don't have the line on the blocks, but he had a couple of those too. I mean, look, we talked about this. The way this team can be beat is underneath.
Yeah.
I mean, we see that, throughout. Without him there, they have a real problem with bigs, right? Well, this game, he was an immediate presence, Mark.
Oh, yeah. Listen, they're going to have to manage him. I definitely thought he's back sooner than expected, but he's definitely makes a difference under there, Chris. He made a difference last year, and then, he got banged up and hurt. So they're going to have to try to manage him. And I thought Mazzulla did a good job of managing him last year because he's so injury prone, but then he got injured anyways. They're going to manage him, Chris. When you got, say you got 2 games in 3 nights, you're not going to see him play the second game, or, if you're playing on a Friday, Sunday, right? He's not going to play on the Sunday. He's going to be my guess. So they're going to manage him throughout the season. They have to. They're going to try to keep him healthy. But, Chris, with him on the court, if he's healthy, let's be realistic. If everybody's healthy and this team is intact going into the playoffs, there's nobody in the Eastern Conference that's going to beat this team. I don't think. I'd be shocked if anybody in the Eastern Conference can beat this team 4 times.
No, I don't think so.
You know what I mean?
I'll tell you this too. If you notice the minutes, Mazzulla didn't play without a big the entire game.
No,
he had Keita and Cornette and Horford were out in this particular game. But Keita played 25 minutes and Porzingis played 23. That's 48, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not that bright. So and Keita had 12 points, 9 rebounds. But you could tell the difference. I mean, you could see the big difference between those two. First of all, Porzingis gets out on the key. He creates more spacing. He can hit that outside shot. He's not afraid to take the 3 either, by the way.
No,
is he?
No. He likes to take the 3.
But with Keita playing the way he is, because I think he's getting better and better. We talked about what do they do when Porzingis.
He's a surprise, Chris.
Right. And what do they do? Porzingis, Horford, injury stuff, age, all that stuff. We need somebody else. Could this guy be that? Could he eventually get to the second half of the season? He improves so much that, we don't need to make a move. This guy will be okay.
I think that's what they're hoping, Chris, because with their salary and what they're paying for guys, they really don't have much wiggle room, Chris. They might be able to bring in a guy on a veteran minimum or a guy who wants to come in for one of the lowest slots you can come in, but they don't have much space to bring anybody in of value. So yeah, I think they are hoping he's the guy, and then you just stay status quo.
Yeah. And my guy, I'm sorry, if Pritchard's not the sixth man right now,
Listen,
I don't know
give you credit, Chris. I'm going to give you credit. You called it before the season started. You said this kid's going to have a big season for them. You called it.
Ice water in his veins. So, liking what we're seeing with the Celtics, let's stay tuned to that. But B's and C's was presented by CORSO Law Group, CORSOLawGroup.com. When we come back, Mark's got a few things to talk about in Yankees versus Red Sox. Stick around.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. CORSO Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. Whether it's a traffic ticket or more serious issue, talk with these expert attorneys. CORSOLawGroup.com.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. All right, Yankees versus Red Sox. Joe? Okay, Mark, what do they call it? Hot stove?
It's hot stove. It's December. It's hot stove.
Feels like a cold stove, though, Mark. What do you see?
Well, listen. The Red Sox, they're the talk in Major League Baseball, Chris. Everybody is saying that the Red Sox are one of the top. They're one of the 4 teams really in on Soto. He's going to make a decision in the next 7-10 days, they're saying. And they're one of the final 4 teams in on him. And they made a serious pitch. And everything you're hearing from major MLB tonight on the MLB network, local beat writers, the Red Sox are in on all the top guys in free agency, Chris. And that's coming from the agents that they're and was it Breslow had a press conference this week and said, we are committed to doing and spending whatever it's going to take to put a winner on the field. Now, I know they made a similar comment last year, but listen, this year it looks like they're actually putting their money where their mouth is. I don't know. Did something click with John? Maybe John Henry gets sick of listening to all the people bash him, and he said, "You know what? Let's spend money and win next year." I don't know. The Yankees are in on Soto. They're one of the 4 final teams. I think we won't know what the Yankees offseason will look like until they determine whether or not they're going to spend the money on him. And if they don't, then I think they'll go in some other directions to bring in pieces. I don't know what that'll look like, but the Red Sox, Chris, do you actually think they're going to spend the money?
No.
Okay, that was easy enough.
No, these agents are maybe using them as leverage. I'll put it this way, Joe. What can I do? Like if they go and sign Soto, I have to do something. I don't know. I'll wear what?
You got to wear a Red Sox shirt.
Oh my God! Do you even own a Red Sox shirt?
No,
I would never make you do that.
But I could tell you this. Okay, I think Soto has a bad taste in his mouth from that World Series against the Yankees.
I think he does.
Hang on. Oh, let me ask you this question, though. He has the potential, but he's got the team around him. And then he's going for more money. I get there's that element. But the Yankees will pay him that same amount, no? And wouldn't you stay with the team that went, and there's a possibility of just them getting better and gelling better in the playoffs next year? Or would you just go start over at the Red Sox?
I would rather stay with the Yankees, Mark.
Yeah.
But the question is, Chris, are the Yankees really matching the offers of the Mets and the Red Sox? And supposedly Toronto's involved. He's not going to go to Toronto. So
let me just say this: if the Yankees lose Soto to the Red Sox, that's worse than losing them to the Mets. If they lose them to the Red Sox, these people may take Boone and Cashman out on you may see those two go out on a stretcher in week 1, in game 1, in the opening day. Okay. I'm telling you now. Okay. So you can't, if you're the Yankees, you can't let that guy go, Mark. Can't do it.
So listen, baseball is going to heat up the hot stove. Yeah. Listen, he was more clutch than Judge in the playoffs. That's for damn sure. Listen, the hot stove is heating up. The next 10 days, we should have a Soto decision, Chris. I can't wait because that's going to frame the rest of the offseason.
So let's see what happens. You heard it here first. Corso and Catone. We got to go, huh? Corso and Catone was presented by the Pats Nation Sundays, 8 a.m. Eastern. Tomorrow we're going to preview that Colts game. So make sure you stick around and come back next weekend, noon. We will recap the Colts game on this show and so much more. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Now find Corso and Catone on AM 790, The Score, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you podcast. Or subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch the chaos every Saturday at noon.